Okay, so anyone have read this? What is this Negotiable Instruments Act? What is the relevance and all of that? Negotiable Instruments Act. So what does negotiable instrument mean? Anyone?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. So basically,
Okay.
negotiable. This act sets laws and regulations for the transaction made between two people. Like let's say a promissory note, or
Hmm.
even like money transaction which happens between two people, or a check.
Hmm.
Any such transactions
Hmm.
will be governed by these laws.
Okay. So this is mainly for different types of transactions between people. Now what happens? This from the act itself, it's clear, right? What is it? It is the Negotiable Instruments Act. Instruments means what? Some kind of a written maybe document or something written in a written form, right? Like an instrument. In case of this, what happens is that this act is applicable to what? It is applicable to instruments only. It is not applicable if we are transacting in terms of cash, right? That would not be covered under Negotiable Instruments Act. It has to be in some kind of a, like an instrument form, that I am making a promise, maybe I am issuing a check, maybe. In such cases, this act will be applicable. So it is applicable only for transactions between people in terms of some sort of an instrument. So in those cases, this act will be applicable. The provisions of this act will be applicable. Now, what is important for these legislations, right? One question very common is the year. So whenever you are saying Negotiable Instruments Act, don't just say the name, but also mention the year as well. So whenever you are saying Negotiable Instruments Act or NI Act, also try to mention the year 1881. So like that, you will just, like remember the years for all of these legislations very easily without any efforts. And that is like a very common question for most of the state's judiciary papers for prelims. So you can try to remember NI Act 1881. This year is very important. Now, just a little bit of history of this act. What happened is that obviously this act is applicable since like before independence only it's applicable, right? So before this instrument or before this act came into force, before that also there were definitely transactions between people, right? This is more applicable for maybe businesses, trade, or commerce. So for that, obviously there were transactions between people, right? People would take certain maybe goods or services on credits, that today I don't have money, you give me this particular goods or you provide me this service, later on I will pay you. That is what people are transacting, but with a promise that I will pay you later on, because right now I don't have cash. Those kind of transactions obviously were there before 1881 also. So before this act came into force, these the kind of transactions were governed by English common law only. Whatever provisions they were following, same only were applied in India also. That this is how it will operate, this is how we will have it. But later on, what happened is that it was realized by this third Indian Law Commission that we also should have a legislation that will specifically mention the provisions in detail based on the Indian situation, like Indian scenario. We should also have a legislation that will be applicable for all these different types of transactions. So accordingly, bill was passed, but then again, there were some deviations from the common law that we were following at that point of time. So many people, these all traders and all, they objected to that this is not like proper. Maybe what we were following previously is more proper. So like that, there were some objections and everything. So after a lot of like discussions, debates and everything, finally this act was passed and it came into force. So you can even read this history. It is not very important from exam point of view, but if you want, you can just go through this history part also when I share the document. But basically, you can remember that this act came into force in 1881. And before that also, we had certain these sort of transactions that were governed by English common law only. Then we had this act, then it became applicable in India. So if you are interested, you can go through this history part also, but it is not very important from exam point of view. Now, this is the classification for this legislation. We have how many chapters? We have 17 chapters and we have 147 sections under this act. Again, there are different types of provisions mentioned. Okay, what are the different types of instruments that we have, how they differ from each other, what are the specific provisions relating to each of these instruments, and all of that. So if you know this Negotiable Instruments Act, right, it's applicable for a lot of different areas. It is applicable for law students also. If you are appearing for judiciary, some states it's applicable, some states it's not applicable. If you are appearing for NET exam, it's applicable. If you are during your LLB times also, for certain universities it will be applicable. For certain universities they don't teach this. Apart from law also, it's applicable for banking exams, all your CA, CS, all of that also it's applicable, right? So what happens is that this entire legislation with 147 sections are not relevant for judiciary. Why? Because some of the provisions are more relevant for banking exams maybe. So if you see some of the, like previous year questions, for example, for banking, they are totally different from the questions for judiciary. So accordingly, you need to prepare. You don't need to go through this entire provisions, but whatever is important from judiciary point of view, those provisions only you should go through. Because the type of questions that we have for banking, it's completely different from that of what we have for judiciary. So accordingly, only we need to prepare rather than wasting our time in reading all these 147 sections. So we will also discuss some like questions from previous year question papers also from Karnataka judiciary obviously, and also any other states where this act may be applicable. We will try to see some previous year questions also, so that we get an idea what kind of questions may be asked in the exam. Now, one example if I want to give you will be, take for example, this act talks about checks, right? So for checks, one important provision is relating to check bounce. So maybe for judiciary, you can expect a question relating to check bounce. Which section defines check? Which section defines promissory note, bills of exchange, or negotiable instruments? We can expect that kind of a question for judiciary. But maybe for banking exams, if you are seeing the question paper, maybe they will ask based on which legislation holidays of banks are decided. So it is again this Negotiable Instruments Act. Those things are not important for judiciary, right? So questions that we have for banking or other exams are totally different, for judiciary totally different. So if you are referring any previous year question papers, make sure you are looking for judiciary papers only. Otherwise you would just get confused in some unnecessary provisions which may not be that relevant for judiciary. So accordingly, you can look for judiciary previous year question papers on Negotiable Instruments Act. Accordingly, you will get an idea what kind of questions may be asked. So basically what is important is we have three different instruments here, right? So which all sections define these three instruments. Then for check also we have few important sections, few important provisions. So we will discuss whatever is important. We will discuss that in detail. Accordingly, you can prepare for this like legislation. Though it looks like very big as compared to Specific Relief Act, the entire thing is not important. For Specific Relief Act, most of the sections are important. Even though it's hardly 42 sections, almost all of the sections were important. You need to go through the sections, provisions, and all of that. But for this legislation, all the things are not important. Just try to understand the different types of instruments and try to see previous year question papers. Accordingly, focus on those subjects, like sections only. No need to go through the entire barrack or entire provision or something like that. So this is just the different types of topics that are covered under it, that we have 17 different chapters under it, and we have 147 sections that mentions different types of provisions. So apart from the year, what is important is when this act was enacted and when it came into force. That is also very important for all the different legislations. So you can remember this act was enacted on 9th of December 1881, and note that this year is different. Okay, it came into force on 1st of April 1882 only. So these two dates are also very important. Many times questions are being asked from this part. So try to take a note of this, and also the years are different. So try to remember it. So it is 9th of December 1881 when this act was enacted, and it came into force on from 1st of April 1882. So what are the different types of instruments that we have under this legislation? We have three different types of instruments. First is promissory note, that is defined under section 4. Second is bills of exchange, defined under section 5. And lastly, we have checks, that is defined under section 6. So you can just remember 4, 5 and 6, promissory note, bills of exchange and check. Three different types of instruments that we have. And this term negotiable instrument in itself is defined under section 13. So what is negotiable instrument? It will include all these different types of instruments. Its definition is given under section 13. And there are three different types of instruments that this legislation talks about. Promissory note is section 4, bills of exchange is section 5, and check is section 6. Again, these four sections are very important. Maybe the entire section 13 you don't need to remember, or you don't need to go through the entire provision, but you need to know that it's section 13 that defines negotiable instruments. And what is the definition all about, right? Like the basic summary of the definition you should remember also. So these sections are again very important. Okay, section 13 defining what is negotiable instrument. Then we have three different types of instruments: section 4, 5 and 6, promissory note, bills of exchange and check. So it is what? It is section 13 that defines negotiable instruments. So what are negotiable instruments? Section 13 basically defines this word, negotiable instruments. Negotiable instruments. So this definition is like very simple one-line definition that is mentioned. Section 13 of the Act defines the terms negotiable instruments as what? As a promissory note, bills of exchange and check, payable either to order or to bearer. So what happens? These three types of instruments are mentioned under this legislation. So for this legislation, what will negotiable instrument mean? It will include any of these three types of instruments: promissory note, bills of exchange and check, payable either to order or to bearer. So we will discuss these provisions in detail also. Today, just try to understand what are these different types of instruments and how they differ from each other, why we have different types of instruments basically. So that thing we will try to understand. So this word, right, negotiable instrument, it's what? There are two different words that are mentioned. First is negotiable and second is instrument. So instrument, we know, right, that even in case of specific relief act also we saw, right, cancellation of instruments. What is instrument? There it would mean maybe some kind of a written agreement that is there that we want to ratify. In that term we used instrument. Here what instrument will mean? It will mean some sort of a written document, that there is a written document where one person has promised to make a certain payment to the other person. That will be an instrument, that it's a written document that a person is having. What is negotiable? It is transferable. What is transferable? If today I am issuing some sort of negotiable instrument to you, it does not mean you cannot transfer it to another third party. You can even transfer that to some other third persons also, just to make it more convenient to deal with transactions. So what we can do is that it is some sort of an instrument. What is instrument? It is some kind of a written document that can be transferred by the person. Even if I am giving you that written document, you can further transfer it to another person. That person can again further transfer it. So basically it is transferable n number of times until its date of maturity comes. So until and unless it is matured on a certain date, before that, we can transfer it to any person n number of times. I'm transferring it to you, you are transferring it to someone else, and like that it can go on for n number of times. So this is why we call it as negotiable instrument. That means some sort of a written document which can be transferred, and it can be transferred n number of times. So any example you can give how we can transfer these instruments? If I'm issuing you some sort of a negotiable instrument, maybe, how can you transfer that to another person? Can anyone tell me? So for transfer, we have two different ways, okay? This also we will discuss in detail with the detailed provision and all. Today just try to understand what it is. So basically negotiable instrument means some sort of a written document that can be transferred to another person. And what we can do is that it can be transferred. It can be transferred n number of times. How can we transfer it? It can be transferred by two different ways. It can be transferred by delivery, or it can be transferred by endorsement. So take for example, I am just issuing you some kind of, maybe I'm issuing you a check, okay? I have not mentioned your name or anything. I have just put my signature. I mentioned the amount that is to be paid, and I issued the check to you. What happens is that no name is mentioned. Your name is not mentioned in the check. That means you can just take the check, go to the bank, and you can take that particular amount of money. In that case, you can transfer the check. How? You can transfer it by delivery, because no one's name is mentioned in that particular check. Whoever carries that check can get that amount, whichever is mentioned in the check. So you can just deliver it to some other person. You can just hand it over to someone else, and that person also can go to the bank and collect the money. That is how you can transfer it. Or maybe you can transfer it by endorsement. I have already mentioned your name, that pay this much amount to so and so person. In that case, you cannot just transfer it to another person, right? Because bank will not give it to that other person. What you need to do is that you need to transfer it by way of endorsement. You maybe towards the back side of the check, you will write name of this other person to whom you want to transfer, and you will also put your signature just in order to authenticate it, and you can hand it over to the other person. So similarly, it can be transferred n number of times. You may even attach like a blank piece of paper and write name of the person and put your signature. And then you can attach as many number of pages as you want, and whoever's name is mentioned at last, that person will get that amount of money. So there are basically two different ways of transferring a negotiable instrument. We will discuss this in detail, that it can be by way of endorsement, or it may be by way of delivery. Delivery is only when name is not mentioned. If name is mentioned, we need to endorse it. We need to mention name of this new person. We need to put our signature to authenticate the transaction, and then we can transfer it. So just try to remember that it's section 13 that defines the word negotiable instrument, which includes these three different types of instruments: promissory note, bills of exchange, and check. It may be payable either to order or to bearer. So payable to order or bearer basically means bearer as in whoever is carrying that particular instrument, right? If I have a check, or if I have any sort of negotiable instrument, if I'm presenting it to you, you need to pay me at that point of time. Or it may be to order. That means maybe I have mentioned a certain date or something. On that particular date, to that certain person, you need to make the payment. So these provisions, anyways, we are going to discuss in detail. So for today, you can try to remember that Negotiable Instruments Act is of the year 1881. When it came into force, when it was enacted, that is important. Complete dates. Then what is important is these four sections. Section 13 defines negotiable instruments. 4, 5, and 6 defines promissory note, bills of exchange, and checks. So these are important. Then what is important is what is negotiable instrument. So it is defined under section 13. And based on this definition, there are 3 different types of instruments that are included. So these are the 3 different types of instruments that are included under this definition. What is negotiable instrument? It basically means some sort of a written document that can be transferred. How many times can we transfer it? We can transfer it n number of times until the date of maturity arrives. So until that point of time, we can transfer this n number of times. So today, just try to understand what is negotiable instrument and what are these different types of instruments that we have. Now, these are some of the features of negotiable instrument, okay? So we know what are negotiable instruments, that it is some kind of a written document that can be transferred to another person also. Now, what are these features of negotiable instrument? First is that it must be in writing. That means an oral promise will not be considered as a negotiable instrument. Take, for example, I am telling you that, okay, fine, today, like I want to buy this phone. Tomorrow I will give you money. That will not be counted as negotiable instrument. It should be in writing that we are making the transaction or we are making the promise. It should always be in writing. Next is it should be signed by the maker or the drawer. If I am making the negotiable instruments, I should also sign that particular instrument just in order to authenticate or validate it, right? Today, take for example, okay, let's take an example, okay? Take for example, there is a person A who is the owner of a fast food stall. But what happens is because of all these, like lockdown and COVID situation and all of that, he is not having enough profit, okay? Not having enough profit to invest on his business. He is the owner of a fast food stall, but because of this present situation, he is not able to make enough profit so that he can invest it on his business. But what happens is that he wanted to buy some, maybe maybe he wanted to buy some chairs and some other items that he needed for his business, but he do not have that much amount of money to invest in his business. So what he can do is that all these items are amounting rupees 50,000, but he don't have this much amount of money to invest right now. So what he can do is that he can take help of some kind of a negotiable instrument, right? He can take help of a negotiable instrument and with a promise to pay later. That means he can say that right now you give me these goods, but I will make the payment later because now I don't have enough money, but you give me these items, these goods worth 50,000, and you take my words that I will repay that amount later on. That is like an example of negotiable instruments, right? It is helping him to make transactions. Even if he do not have money, by the help of negotiable instruments, he can still invest on his business and later on, whenever he is having enough money, he can invest that, he can repay that particular amount. So this is why this act is important, that sometimes like sometimes it may not be, always it may not be possible, right? We have money and we can just give it straightforward. Sometimes we may take a little while also. So in those cases, negotiable instruments may be applicable. So in this case, A can make a promise in writing that I will repay this amount of money after maybe 3 months or after 4 months, and accordingly they can transact, and accordingly he can invest on his business. So it should always be in writing and it should be signed by the maker. Take for example, now he said that I don't have enough money to invest in my stall, but I want this item, so you give this to me, I will pay you 50,000 rupees later. He made a promise also. He just like wrote a note that I will give you 50,000 rupees after 3 months, but then his signature was not there. Then in that case, what happens is that whenever the other person wants to claim for it, he can just say, right, that I never made this promise, this is not a genuine document, this is not a genuine piece of paper, I did not make any such kind of promise. So just in order to avoid that, what we will ensure is that it should have signature of the person also, so that later on he do not refuse that I never made any kind of promise like this. So it should always be what? It should be signed by the maker or the drawer. Next is, it must be a promise or an order to pay. This also you will come to know once we discuss the instruments in detail. It may be one promise. I am making a promise that today you give me these items. After 3 months, I will pay you 50,000 rupees. What is it? It's like a promise, right? I'm making a promise that today you give me these items. Tomorrow I will pay you 50,000. So it may be a promise also, or it may be an order to pay also. What is order to pay? Anyone? What is order to pay? So it can be a promise that I'm making a promise that I will pay you 50,000 rupees after 3 months. What can be order to pay? Who will give that order?
Ma'am, I think a drawer.
It will be drawer. So in this case, who will give the order? If I'm buying some items and later on I will pay 50,000 rupees. So who will give the order? I will give, the other person will give, who will give?
I think who purchased, ma'am? I think drawer.
Okay, who purchased? So who purchased, as in if I bought those items, right? I will make a promise that I will pay you 50,000 rupees. But this other person may make an order. What he can say is that he can say that, okay, fine, on this so and so date, you bought these items from me. So I order you to pay 50,000 rupees after 3 months time. So this other person, right, from whom I bought those goods, he can make an order to me that I should pay 50,000 rupees after 3 months. So if I'm the one who is supposed to pay, I can make a promise to whom I will give an order, right? I cannot order anyone because it's me only who is supposed to pay. So I can make a promise, but this other person, right, the creditor, he can make an order that after 3 months you pay 50,000 rupees. So based on this only we have two different instruments, right? Promissory note and bills of exchange. So in promissory note, we make a promise that I will pay you 50,000 rupees. In bills of exchange, it's like an order. The creditor will give me an order that after 3 months, you pay 50,000 rupees. Based on this only, we have two different classifications. So it can be either a promise or it may be order to pay. The person can give an order that you make this payment after 3 months of time. So firstly, it should be in writing. It must be signed by the person just in order to authenticate it, so that later on we do not just deviate from our words. We do not just say that it's a fake document, it's a fake instrument. We cannot say that. And thirdly, what happens? It can be a promise or it may be an order to pay also. Next is what? This promise or order must be unconditional. Now, what is unconditional as in? there should not be any other conditions put in it. Take for example, I'm buying these chairs and some other items for 50,000 rupees. I will just make a simple and clear promise that after 3 months, I will pay you 50,000 rupees. I cannot put some conditions. I cannot say that, okay, fine, if corona cases are going down, if I'm able to make enough profit within these 3 months, then I will pay you 50,000 rupees. Maybe if I am able to get a minimum of 10 to 15 customers per day, then only I will pay you 50,000 rupees. If I'm able to make 50,000 rupees profit during this 3 months, then only I will pay 50,000. I cannot put any such conditions. It should be unconditional. I will clearly say that I will pay you 50,000 rupees after 3 months. No conditions are there. I will not say if I am able to make enough profit, if my business runs well, if this, if that, nothing like that. Simple promise without any conditions I will have to make. Next is what? It must call for payment in money and money only. So payment may be in terms of money, also in terms of kind also, right? So it should always be in terms of money only. I cannot say that, okay, fine, today I'm taking all these items from you worth 50,000 rupees. What you can do is that in exchange of it, you can come to my fast food stall whenever you want and you can have anything for free. Whatever you want, you can eat that for free. But I'm not going to pay you 50,000 rupees. That means what? It's not a transaction in terms of money, right? It's transaction in terms of time, that you can eat anything from my fast food stall for free for your entire lifetime. So it should not be like that. It should always be in terms of money and money only. If there is a debt of 50,000 rupees, I should make a promise that I will be paying 50,000 rupees, or the person can give me an order that you pay 50,000 rupees. There cannot be any conditions like you can eat anything from my fast food stall for free or things like that. It should always be in terms of money and money only. It should call for payment of a certain sum. So certain sum as in this amount also has to be fixed. It should not be like, okay, fine, today you are buying these items for free. Tomorrow you pay me 5% of your profit, or you pay me, like whatever savings you make, 5% of that. There should not be something like that. It should be a fixed amount that we have clearly mentioned. It should not be some vague amount. Or we cannot say, okay, fine, you pay me enough money. It should not be like that. We should always mention the amount, whether it's 50,000, 40,000, 10,000, whatsoever it is. We should mention it, what we mentioned, certain sum, as in we should mention that definite amount also. We cannot just say that, okay, fine, you pay me 5% of your annual profit. You pay me half of your profit from these 3 months period or something like that. It has to be a fixed amount only that we will mention in the instrument. Next is the property in the property in the instrument may be passed in two ways: mere delivery or endorsement. So we know, right, that negotiable instruments are some instruments that can be transferred. So how it can be transferred, that is what is mentioned, that there are two ways. It may be by mere delivery or it may be by endorsement as well. So this we will see in detail also in the next provisions. Next is the consideration is also presumed to have been passed. So we have studied about consideration, right, under contract. So same thing here also applies. If I am making a promise that I take, for example, I'm passing, like giving a negotiable instrument. I bought these items for worth 50,000 rupees for free, and I wrote on a paper that I will pay you 50,000 rupees after 3 months from this date. I'm not mentioning that I bought these items, I bought these chairs or other items. I have not mentioned anything, but it will be presumed that consideration has passed. That means by looking at that piece of paper, it will be presumed that definitely I would have got something worth 50,000 rupees, because of which I'm making this promise. So even if I'm not mentioning that I bought these items for my fast food stall, it will be presumed that I have definitely got something worth 50,000 rupees. Because of that only I'm making this promise. So these are some of the features of negotiable instruments that will just help you understand what these instruments are basically. So it should be it is an instrument in writing. It must be signed by the person who makes it just in order to authenticate it. It must be a promise, or it may be an order to pay. It may be it has to be in terms of money only. This transaction has to be in terms of money only. It has to mention a fixed or a certain sum of money, and then it can be transferred by way of delivery or endorsement, and consideration will be presumed to have been passed. If I'm just mentioning that I will pay this much amount of money to you, it will be presumed that I must have got something worth that amount, because of which only I'm making this particular promise. So these are some of the features of negotiable instruments. So any doubts till this point? Is this part clear, or anything you want to be repeated?
Yes, ma'am, cleared.
So what are negotiable instruments? Basically some written document that can be transferred to other persons also for n number of times until its date of maturity arrives. These are some of the features that will just help you get an understanding on what these instruments are. So when we discuss these different types of instruments in detail, you would get more clarity on it. Okay, now in the definition that we have under section 13, right, it mentions that it may be promissory note, bills of exchange, or check. And here it is mentioned that promise should be there, right? One person is making a promise in terms of money. That means promise to pay a certain sum of money, and it is in writing. Okay, so in writing, I'm making a promise that I want to pay this much amount of money to this person. So considering this, can we consider like currency notes as negotiable instruments? So for example, if you look at a note, now take for example, if you look at any currency notes, right, over here, if you see, it writes I promise. So this is the, I have zoomed it. Here it mentions I promise to pay the bearer the sum of 50 rupees. So whatever currency notes you see, right, it may be 50 rupees, 10 rupees, 2,500, whatsoever it is, it will mention like this, that I promise to pay 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 500, 2,000, whatever it is, to the bearer. Bearer as in whoever is having it, right? If I am giving a 50 rupees note to you, that means I'm making a promise that I want to give you 50 rupees. So I am giving it. So considering this, can we consider currency notes as a negotiable instruments, because there is a promise in terms of money? So can we consider currency notes as negotiable instruments? Because there is also a promise, right? I'm making a promise. Anyone?
What the question, ma'am?
Can we consider promise can we consider these currency notes as negotiable instrument, because it's also like a promise we are making, right? That I want to pay this much amount of money to the other person. Here there is a promise that we are making over here. So can we consider currency notes also as a negotiable instrument?
I don't think so, ma'am. I don't think it's covered by the Negotiable Instruments Act, at least,
Yeah.
because I have not seen any cases related to, like, let's say, cash fraud or something like
Yeah.
that.
So for currency notes, even if there is this promise is made, it is governed by Indian Currency Act. So for Negotiable Instruments Act, it is not included. So even though there is a promise that to whomever I am giving this note, I promise to pay this much amount of money to that person, currency notes are not included. So there, I think once or twice I have seen a question whether currency notes are included under Negotiable Instruments Act or not. So try to remember they are not included, even though it make there is like a promise made. It is governed by a separate legislation, so it will not be included under Negotiable Instruments Act. And also the definition is pretty clear, right? 3 different types are mentioned under it. Now, applicability of the Negotiable Instruments Act. So for applicability, it is so it is section 1 of the Negotiable Instruments Act that talks about applicability, and there also it's very clearly mentioned that nothing in this particular legislation would affect the provisions of Indian Paper Currency Act 1871. So that means this Negotiable Instruments Act is nowhere related to currency notes. Currency notes will be governed by Indian Currency Act 1871 only. So that regarding that, it is not applicable. So for applicability of this legislation, it is section 1 that talks about it. So what happens is, what is the application or scope of this act? Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 extends to the whole of India. So is it applicable to Jammu and Kashmir?
No, ma'am.
Is it applicable? Your voice was not clear, Mamta.
I think no.
It is not applicable, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
So just like how we saw for this, right, specific relief act, we saw, right, that this is the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act is there, where we can see whether it's applicable or not. So we will do the same thing for here also. We will try to see if it's applicable or is it not applicable. So we can just look for this negotiable one. Why is it not? Okay, because this under this legislation, like it excludes the state of Jammu and Kashmir was not previously mentioned, so it's not listed there, but it is applicable to the whole of India only. So regarding the application, right, it's applicable to the whole of India, and it's obviously applicable to these three different types of instruments that we have: promissory note, bills of exchange, and check. And also it says that the NI Act will not apply to paper currency notes. So for currency notes, we have different legislation that will be applicable. Provisions of NI Act will not be applicable. NI Act is also not applicable to any customary instruments like hundi unless and until the parties thereto agrees to be governed by the provisions of NI Act. Now, after looking at this definition, right, definition of negotiable instruments that we saw, that it can be some kind of a written instrument with a promise and everything. It's not like we just have three different types of instruments, right? There may be different types of instruments also that we are not aware about it much, but it is very much prevalent in a certain community or in a certain place, right? It is just confined to a certain community or a certain, just like a small place also. It may be limited to that particular thing also. So those can be what, there can be other types of instruments also apart from these three types of instruments which are more popular. There can be some other instruments which are what, customary instruments. Maybe within a certain community it is very much prevalent that they follow this particular instrument in order to like facilitate some sort of transactions. So for those customary transactions, what happens is that this act will not be applicable. But again, there is a condition: unless and until the parties thereto agrees to be governed by the provisions of NI Act. Maybe there is some sort of a customary instrument that a certain community, like is following, but because it's very much limited to that community only, it's not that popular or something like that, they do not have any customary rules and regulations to govern it in case there is a dispute. In that case also NI Act will be applicable. Or if the parties say that okay fine, we are applying this customary instruments, but we will be governed by the provisions of NI Act in case of any disputes, in that case also the provisions of this act may be applied between the parties to settle the matter. So usually it's just these three instruments, but there can be certain types of customary instruments also where customary rules or regulations are silent about how to settle a dispute. There it can be applied. Or if parties agree to be governed by the provisions of NI Act, in that case also it may be applied. But otherwise, in general, it's just these three instruments. So they have just given one example also about customary instruments like hundis. But there may be other different types of customary instruments also that may not be that popular and we are not aware about it. But there can be any type of instruments. Even if it's not popular, if tomorrow something comes up, court can take a decision based on this legislation also for that instrument. So for hundis, they have given an example. So these are basically, they look like this. So if you want to see what hundis are, they are what, customary instruments. Now you can look for hundis. So if you want to see what hundis look like, you can just search Hundis Reserve Bank of India. Hundis Reserve Bank of India, then you will get this particular, like the first link that comes, right? That is only this. So you can just search Hundis Reserve Bank of India, and this first link that comes, you can click on this link to see what hundis look like. So what are hundis? They refer to some sort of financial instruments that were applicable for credit transactions. So these are different examples of hundis. So this is from the Reserve Bank of India website. You can look for these different types of hundis that were applicable. So these are the examples that they have given. So these are basically some things that are in like Oriental language. They will write that things. So these are what basically for credit transactions only these will be issued. So you can just go through the website if you are interested to see how they look and all the different provisions, but it is not that much important. You can just remember that Negotiable Instruments Act is applicable for these three types of instruments, but it may be applied to some sort of customary instruments like hundis when the or customary laws are silent how to settle a matter dispute with regard to those instruments, or if the parties agree that we should be governed by the provisions of NI. In that case also it can be applied. So if you have any doubts on this negotiable instruments part, you can tell, or any part to be repeated, you can tell. Otherwise we will proceed with the different types of instruments. So any doubts on this part? Is it clear what are negotiable instruments? Anyone, any doubts?
No doubts, ma'am.
Okay. Also, when we discuss these different types of instruments, this provisions will be more clear also. So next class, we can just revise this part one more time, then you will get more clarity on this. So this is what basically negotiable instruments are. So which section defines negotiable instrument?
Section 13, ma'am.
13, ma'am.
Section 13 of the Act. So try to remember the section. Next is, so the first type of instrument that we have is what? It is promissory note. So what is promissory note? From the word, what do you understand? It's very clear from the like name itself, right? Promissory note. So what is promissory note? Anyone? Promissory note?
It's a promise.
It's a promise.
It's a promise to pay some amount of money.
Yeah, it is a promise to pay a certain sum of money. So it's very clear from the name itself, right? It is what? It's a note. Note means any kind of note, right? We may just write something as a reminder to ourselves also, right? Sometimes you may just write that, okay, fine, on this date I need to maybe submit this project, or I need to do this particular thing. That's also a note. So this is also some sort of a note where we will write a certain thing. What kind of note it is? It's a promissory note. Maybe we can just take a sticky note and we can just write that on so and so date we need to submit this project, on so and so date we need to pay this particular bill. That is what? Like a reminder, right? It's also a note, but it's like a reminder. When we look at this note, we will remember that, okay, fine, I need to pay or clear this particular bill. Accordingly we will do. So what kind of note is it? It's a promissory note. That means it's not a reminder to ourselves, but it's a note where I'm making a promise. So that is why it is called as promissory note. It's a note where I will write a certain thing, but why will I write it? It's like a promise. I'm making a promise to fulfill that particular thing, whatever I have written. So promissory note is defined under section 4. Try to remember these sections anyhow. So what is promissory note? A promissory note is an instrument in writing. Obviously, it has to be in writing only, because negotiable instruments should be in writing. So it is what? An instrument in writing, not being a banker note or a currency note. In case of currency notes also, we have seen there is a promise that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 50 rupees, 100 rupees, whatever it is. But it will not include a currency note or banker note. Same only, both currency note, banker note, that currency is only that we have. So even though it's in writing, it will not include currency notes. Then containing an unconditional undertaking. It should not have any other conditions. I cannot say that only if I'm able to make a certain profit, only if I found whatever I bought for 50,000 rupees, I found that useful, I will pay you, or anything like that. I cannot put any conditions to it. So it should be an unconditional undertaking. Undertaking as in I'm only declaring it, right? I'm only saying that I will pay this amount of money. So it should be what? An unconditional undertaking. Signed by the maker. If I'm making it, I will have to sign it just in order to authenticate it. Otherwise, I may just say that I will pay 50,000 rupees to you and I may give it to you. Tomorrow I can say that this is not a genuine instrument. I have never made such kind of a promise. So just to ensure that I do not refuse or I do not, like say that it's fake or something like that, it should be signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money to the drawer. To the other person, I am making a promise that I will pay this fixed amount of money to you. If it's 50,000 rupees, I will make a promise that I will pay 50,000 rupees to you. So it is under section 4 that defines promissory note. What is it? It's an instrument in writing. What I will write, it will be an unconditional undertaking where I will sign it to pay a certain sum of money. So whatever is important, I have made it bold also. Like just before exam, you can just go through it. Okay, what is it? Instrument in writing, unconditional undertaking, signed and pay a certain sum of money. So like that also, you can just quickly revise the provisions. So it is section 4 that defines a promissory note. Now, take for example this example that we took, right, regarding buying of certain items for a fast food stall. We can take the same example only. So if I am the person who is buying certain items worth 50,000 rupees on credit, I'm not making the payment at that moment, but I will make the payment later on. So who will make the promise? It's obvious, right? Only I can make the promise. The other person will not make a promise because he has already delivered those items to me. It's I'm the one who is supposed to make the payment. So it's very obvious that I only will make the promise. What kind of promise? Unconditional promise that I will pay 50,000 rupees to this other person. So that will be a promissory note that after taking delivery of those goods, I am making a promise to the other person with my signature that I will pay 50,000 rupees to you, and accordingly it will be done. So what are promissory notes? Basically some sort of a written promise where unconditional promise is there to make a certain thing. Okay, now based on these conditions, right, these are like the essentials that in writing, unconditional, sign, and certain sum of money is there. So these are some of the examples. So can you tell if all of these are promissory notes or not? First is I promise to pay B rupees 500 on 15th of June 2020. So is this a promissory note based on these conditions that we have?
Yes, ma'am.
It is a promissory note. Why is it a promissory note? Because one person is making a promise without any conditions that I will pay 500 rupees. The amount is also fixed. And also he has clearly mentioned that on 15th of June 2020, I will make this payment. So it's a promissory note because it is satisfying all of these conditions. Secondly, I acknowledge myself to be indebted to B in rupees 1,000 to be paid on demand for value received. Will this be promissory note? So you can just check whether it's satisfying these conditions or not, and accordingly you can decide if it's a promissory note or not.
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Because the demand should be mentioned, because the demands, they're not clearly mentioned, ma'am. They're ambiguous.
Demand as in?
It's not clearly mentioned. The condition is not clearly mentioned.
Okay, see, demand as in what does demand mean is it may be time is fixed, right? So see here, time is fixed that on 15th of June 2020 I will make the payment. Or what they can do is that they can just mention that this much amount I will pay, but date is not mentioned. Then in that case it will be on demand, as in if I have such kind of a promissory note, I can just go to you, I can show that, see, this is what you promised, so you pay me. That is what is demand. I'm demanding that you made this promise, now you pay me. So that is what on demand is, that whenever I take that promissory note to you, you will have to pay me. So that also is valid because condition is not there, right? It's also unconditional, but we have just not mentioned the time frame, but it is on demand. So here also, yeah, so this is what it is. It may be a promise or order to pay, it must be unconditional. So see, sometimes what happens is that we saw somewhere, one second, sometimes what happens is that we may fix a time frame also, that on this particular date only you should pay. So that will be on that day only you need to pay. And sometimes we may just say that it is on demand, or it may be when like when it is presented. So whenever I'm presenting that instrument, you should pay me. This applies for checks also. In check, we will not mention that on this particular day you should pay it, but whenever you deposit the check, then bank will clear it, right? So that is also on demand only. Then whenever you are demanding that this check is issued to me, so pay me this much amount of money, bank will pay you. So that also is an example of on demand they are paying, but it will not be paid on a certain fixed date, that bank will pay it themselves only. You need to demand for it, then only it will be paid to you. So same may apply here also. We can fix a date when it will be paid, or it may be on demand. We should go and present it before the person, and the person will pay it. So the second one will also be a promissory note, where we are not mentioning a date, but still we are mentioning a specified amount, and it is unconditional promise to pay. So this also will qualify for a promissory note, valid promissory note. Next one, Mr. B, I owe you rupees 1000.
Ma'am, what is that IOU?
So it's like I owe you, but they have written in short form I owe you. So in that case, we can say that it's not very clear. It's vague. What is I owe you, right? It's not very clear, or it's not a standard short form that we write. So in that case, we can say that it's not a promissory note because it is not clear. Next one. I promise to pay rupees 500 and all other sums which shall be due to him. So will this be promissory note?
Ma'am, it won't be because a specified amount has to be mentioned. 500 he has mentioned, but the other part is quite ambiguous and uncertain.
Yeah, it is not certain. So 500 he has mentioned, but the remaining part is not certain. So we cannot say it is also a valid promissory note. All the other sums which shall be due to him, that is not very clear. So it is not, it will not qualify. Next one, I promise to pay B 500 first deducting thereout any money which he may owe to me.
Again, ma'am, it is not. It is conditional.
Yeah.
After deducting, he'll be paying it.
Yeah, it is conditional, and also we do not know how much money that person owes, right? If they mention that, okay, fine, this is what he owes, so we are deducting that. That is again not clear how much money he is supposed to pay and all of that. So this also will not qualify. Next, I promise to pay B rupees 500 7 years after my marriage with C.
I think it's promissory, ma'am.
Is it promissory?
I think not, ma'am.
Yeah, it is not, because again there is a condition. First of all, it's not sure whether the person will get married or not. Secondly, it's not sure whether he will get married to C or not. So it's again conditional. Again, he has mentioned 7 years after that particular marriage. Marriage itself is not sure. Whether he will marry that person only or not, that is also not sure. So it is conditional only. That condition is there. So it will not qualify as
Okay.
a promissory note. Next one, I promise to pay B rupees 500 on D's death, provided D leaves me enough to pay that sum.
It's not a promissory note, ma'am.
It is not a promissory note, because again it's like very much conditions are there, right? So this is like from the bare act only where definition is given. So just to give you an understanding, they have mentioned some examples also. Next is H. I promise to pay B 500 and to deliver to him my black horse on 1st January next. So what will this be?
It's not, ma'am, because here is the condition, like he's telling, like he's going to deliver his black horse to him.
So is that a condition? Because he has clearly said, right, I will give my black horse. So that is not a condition, right? What it will be? So condition is like, if this happens, I will do this. If D leaves enough money, then I will pay you. That is a condition. But here he has clearly mentioned that I will deliver my black horse. So this is like a promise only. So will this be a promissory note?
Yes, ma'am.
Others, is this a promissory note?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
delivering the black horse is an independent thing. It is not a conditional thing, right? So
Okay.
it's not amounting to a condition of paying 500 rupees. So it will be a promissory note.
See, it is a separate thing only. It's not like conditional or anything. But again, if you remember these features, what it talks about, it must be in terms of money and money only. It should not be in terms of kind, right? So 500 is fine, it's in terms of money, but delivery of horse is not in terms of money. So because of that reason, this also will not qualify as a valid promissory note. Why? Because 500 is fine, it's in terms of money, but along with that, he is also saying that, and deliver to him my black horse. That means what? Some transaction has happened between them. Half of the payment is in terms of money and the remaining half is in terms of kind. So kind is not accepted for negotiable instruments. It has to be in terms of money and completely money. So because of that reason, even this will not qualify as a valid promissory note. So these are the things that are mentioned. That the instruments that are mentioned, A and B, are promissory notes, and the remaining ones are not promissory notes. So this you can even find in the bare act also. All these examples are from there only. So you, after reading these examples, you can just like think about what are the conditions that are essential. That it should be unconditional. It should be in with regard to payment in terms of money. Payment has to be certain fixed amount. Date may be mentioned, or we may also mention that on demand. Whenever I am presenting this instrument in front of you, at that moment you need to pay me. So accordingly, it will be seen. So is this part clear? What is promissory note?
Yes, ma'am.
So for what is negotiable instrument set? Again, after reading all these different types of instruments, right? After reading all of this, these features will be more clear to you. Then you would be able to relate each and every point. So for now, you can just remember what are promissory notes. That it's a note What kind of note? It's a promissory note. I'm making a promise to make certain kind of a payment, a fixed amount. I'm making a promise. So this is like an example of how promissory note will look like or may look like. So take for example, here date will be mentioned, the date when this promissory note was mentioned, like a note was made. Maybe I will write 28/11/2020. I will mention the amount also, that 50,000 rupees. I may mention the place also. And I will say that I so-and-so person promised to pay like so-and-so amount of money to so-and-so person. And accordingly, I will make the promise. And also I will, like maybe I will write the names and all, parties name and all, signature and all I will put. So why is it important to put signature and everything? Take for example, we have made a promise, right? I, Meenakshi, promised to pay so and so rupees to Neha. Now there may be thousands of Meenakshis and Nehas, even if we write the place also, right? In Bangalore only there may be thousands of other people with the same name. So just in order to authenticate it, we will also put our signature and all of that. So it's not like a standard format that we have and it should look same only. It may be a little different how people are entering into it, but this is just to give you an idea or an understanding on how they may look. So take for example, A bought 10 laptops worth 50,000 each on credit from B. So all these instruments are applicable for credits only, right? That I am taking something on credits, or maybe in future I will take something from you, or I will take some service. Previously only I am making the payment. In those cases it will be applicable. From B and issued a promissory note mentioning that he will pay 5 lakhs rupees to B on 1st of December 2020. So this note is signed by A and is given to B. It will be an example of promissory note because there is no conditions mentioned. He has not mentioned that if only I am able to sell all of these 10 laptops, then only I will pay 50,000 rupees. If only I am able to make use of these 10 laptops, then I will pay you this rupees. Nothing is mentioned like that, right? So it will be a promissory note. But take for example, A bought 10 laptops worth 50,000 each and made a promise that I'm not going to make the payment, but whenever you want any work to be done relating to computers, maybe typing, printing, whatever it is, I will do it for you for free. That will not be a promissory note. Why? Because it's a transaction in terms of kinds, that you give me 10 laptops, I will provide you free services for lifetime. That will not be applicable. It has to be in terms of money and money only. It cannot be a mixture of money and kind also. It has to be completely in terms of money. So if he is saying that I will pay you this entire amount of 5 lakhs rupees, then it will be a promissory note because there is no other conditions attached to this particular promise. So while studying contracts, right, we saw one case where this promissory note thing was mentioned. So this case was Angul versus Lakha Singh. So if you remember, this case was relating to contracts with minor. Anyone remembers this case? What happened in this from contracts classes? Angul versus Lakha Singh. Basically what happened in this case is that this Lakha Singh was a minor and he had a certain property, and Khangul was the person who wanted to buy this property from Lakha Singh. So what he did is that they both made a contract that I will buy this property from you, and Khangul had to make the payment for this property. So what he did is that one portion of the payment he paid in cash. So one portion of payment was made by cash, and for the remaining portion For the remaining portion, he made a promissory note. He made a promissory note. So in this case also, this promissory note thing was mentioned if you see this case in detail. So Khangul made a certain amount of this payment in cash, and for the remaining payment, he issued a promissory note making a promise that whenever you produce this promissory note in front of me, I will make the payment. I will clear the payment to you. But right now I am not paying, but you can later on demand for it. So that was an example where this thing we studied about promissory note. So like that, it can happen, right? That today we are entering into some sort of a deal, but I don't have enough of money with me. So I'm making a promise that later on a certain fixed date, or after 3 months, or whenever you demand, I will make the payment. Accordingly, promissory note may be made between us. These first features that we saw were features in general relating to negotiable instruments, and these are features of promissory note. So we will see what are these features. First is it must be in writing, and it should not be an oral promise. Obviously, all negotiable instruments has to be in written form only. The promise must be unconditional. We cannot put any condition that only if I am able to sell this 10 laptops, I will pay you the 5 lakhs rupees. Only if I am able to make use of these 10 laptops, I will pay you, or anything like that. We cannot mention anything like that. It should be unconditional promise. Whatsoever is the case, I will pay you 5 lakhs rupees after 3 months, or on 1st of January 2021, whatever it is. The amount must be certain, definite, and well mentioned. I should mention that 5 lakhs rupees. I cannot say that I will pay you 90% of whatever profit I make by using these 10 laptops, because no one knows what amount of profit I will make. That is not a certain thing to mention. I cannot say that I will pay you 5% of whatever is the maybe whatever is the price of these laptops after 10 years in a certain state or something like that. We should not put certain things like that, but it should be very much clear, and it should be a fixed amount that we are promising to pay under this promissory note. Next is the promissory note should be signed by the maker. If I am making a promise that I will pay you 5 lakhs rupees, it should be signed by me. Because if tomorrow you are coming to demand for that amount, I may just refuse, saying that it's a fake promissory note. So it has to be signed by the maker. And the payee must be a definite person. It should not be like, I promise to pay 5 lakhs rupees. To whom do I promise to pay? So it has to be certain to whom I want to pay. That person also has to be a definite person. It should not be like, I will pay 5 lakhs rupees on 1st of January to a person whomever I like on that particular day. It should not be like that, right? It has to be a definite person whose name and all I will also mention, and to that person I will accordingly make the payment. So these are some of the features of promissory note that we have.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Ma'am, if the payee is unable to pay the amount, ma'am, can his legal representative be sued, or can the amount be recovered from them?
See, that again, your normal provisions only will apply. If like one person, like if maybe the father has bought certain maybe items for his own personal use, his legal representatives are like nowhere benefited. Like whatever provisions we have for contracts, right? Same thing will apply. If take for example, the father has bought certain things for his own personal use, he used those things, and then he was not able to make the payment. Obviously, legal representatives will not be liable in that particular case. So accordingly, it will be decided. Or if one person, maybe he is buying like costly perfumes for his own personal use, and later on he is not able to pay. If a case is filed, whatever property and all he is having, maybe from that it will be recovered. But if he is buying perfumes for his own personal use, obviously his legal heirs should not be liable for that particular thing, because they are nowhere getting any benefits out of that particular thing. So whatever general provisions are there, those only will be applicable here also, depending on for what purpose this promise was and all of that, what kind of transaction was it between the two parties basically. So is this part clear relating to promissory note? This is the basic like definition and features part.
Yes, ma'am.
So it has to be in writing, unconditional promise to pay a certain fixed amount of money to another person. Now we know what is promissory note, right? If I am buying something on credits, I only will make a promise that on so and so date, I will make this payment to you. That is what is promissory note. Now, why do we need a different type of instrument then? Why do we need bills of exchange? So we will see the definition and it will be very clear. So bills of exchange is defined under section 5. Section is very important. Section 5 defines what is bills of exchange. So what is bills of exchange? A bill of exchange is an instrument in writing. Again, it is what? It is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order. It is not a promise. It's what? It's an order signed by the maker. That means order will be made by this maker. Whoever is making this instrument, that person will make an order. What kind of order? Directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to, or the order of a certain person, or to the bearer of the instrument. Now, what does this mean? For example, the same example only we will take, okay? For bills of exchange also, we can take the same example and understand what it is. So there is one person A who is owner of a fast food stall. He bought certain items worth 50,000 rupees and he did not make the payment at that moment itself. Now for this, we can make a promissory note also. A will make a promise that I will pay 50,000 rupees maybe after 3 months, after 4 months or on a certain date. I will make the payment. That will be a promissory note. What can be this other situation? On the other situation, what happens? Take for example, A not having enough profits from B. So these items were bought from B. So what B can do is that rather than A making a promise, B can make an order. So what B can do is that rather than A making a promise, B can make an order. What kind of order? B will make an order that I order you to pay 50,000 rupees after 3 months. After 3 months to me, or maybe to some other persons also. So why is it necessary that it can be to that person or someone else also? Directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. So what does this mean? A certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Take for example, like this legislation, right? It is only in order to make it very much easy and convenient for all the traders and businessmen to do these kind of transactions. Now, if take for example, B is the person who is dealing with all these different items. Every single day, he will enter into a lot of different transactions, right? Maybe today he is supposed to get 50,000 rupees from someone. Tomorrow, he should also pay 50,000 rupees to another person. So there are multiple transactions that these people enter into on a single day only, right? So what B can do is that, take for example, now after giving all these items, B is supposed to get 50,000 rupees from A. And there is another transaction that B entered into with C, where C will get 50,000 rupees from B. So B has made two different contracts. In one, A is supposed to pay 50,000 rupees to B. In another one, B is supposed to pay 50,000 rupees to C. Is this part clear? So one single transaction only. Take for example, B is a businessman. He made two different transactions. In one, A is supposed to pay 50,000 rupees to B. In another one, B is supposed to pay 50,000 rupees to C. So what B can do is that rather than taking the money from A and then again giving it to C, what he can do is that he can get done with all these things in one single transaction only. He can say that you should pay me 50,000 rupees. So rather than paying it to me, you pay it to C. So what happens in one single transaction only, all these things will get cleared, right? So that also can be done. So in bills of exchange, B will make an order. He can say that you pay 50,000 rupees to me after 3 months from this date, or you pay 50,000 rupees to whoever is carrying this bills of exchange to you. I can give it to someone else also. I may give it to C, D, E, F, whoever, to whomever I'm supposed to pay. I can give it to any person. Whoever carries this bills of exchange to you, you pay that much amount, 50,000 rupees to that particular person. So in case of bills of exchange, it's not a promise. Why? Because it is made by the creditor. He will make an order that you are supposed to pay 50,000 rupees to me. So you make this payment after 3 months from this particular date. It can be either that you pay this amount to me, or you pay this amount to C, or whoever is carrying this particular instrument, you make the payment to that person only. So this is why we need two different instruments. In promissory note, the debtor is making the promise that I will pay it to you. In case of bills of exchange, the creditor is making the instrument. So creditor obviously will not make any kind of promise, right? He will make an order that you pay 50,000 rupees to me after 3 months from this particular date. Accordingly, it will be done. It also has to be in writing without any conditions and all of that. So promissory note is made by the debtor. Bills of exchange is made by the creditor. Promissory note is a promise. Bills of exchange is what? It's an order. Order to pay, that you pay this much amount of rupees to the other person. So there are basically three parties in case of bills of exchange. The drawer, who is the seller who made the bills of exchange. It is the B, right? B is what? B is drawer. It is drawee, the buyer who is supposed to pay. A is the drawee. And lastly, payee, who will get paid. It may be B also, it may be C also. It depends. If B wants that this payment should be made to me, payee also will be B only. If B wants that this payment should be made to C, payee will be C. So this payee can either be the drawer himself or someone else also. So drawer and payee can in some cases be the same person as well. So in case of bills of exchange, what happens? It is an instrument in writing with an unconditional order. It is always ordered, signed by the maker, and he will direct this other person to make a certain sum of money to the other or to some certain person, whoever is carrying that particular instrument. There are three parties: drawer, who is making the bills of exchange. B is the drawer, who is the creditor. Drawee is the person who will make the payment, A. And payee is whoever will get the payment. It may be B also, or it may be some other person to whom B is supposed to make any sort of payment. Is this definition clear, or you want it to be repeated? See, these definitions only are like very important. So just ensure it's very clear to you on these three definitions. So So is this clear or you want it to be repeated? So these are the three persons, right? In case of bills of exchange, we have three persons, drawer, drawee, and payee. Now example is A, that same example, A bought laptops worth 50,000 rupees each, total amount is 5 lakhs. B also had bought some different office. Okay, so this is an example. A bought 10 laptops worth 50,000 each on credit. So these are bought on credit from B. He will make the payment later on from B, and this total amount is 5 lakhs rupees. Now B is supposed to get 5 lakhs rupees from A, but there is another transaction where B has also bought some office tables from C, and this amount is also 5 lakhs rupees, and this amount is also to be paid by B. So in this case, what B can do is that he can issue a bills of exchange to A, directing him to pay 5 lakhs rupees to C. So rather than making two transactions in one single transaction only, both these two debts will be settled and they can get their amounts, right? So it can be done like that. Or we can say that, no, you make the payment to me only and I will make the payment to C. So that can also be done. However B prefers, accordingly it can be done. So B can take the amount himself. Yeah. Yeah. Any doubts? So it depends on B how he wants to do the transaction. It can be that he will take the amount himself, then again he will pay it to C, or he can say that rather than paying it to me, you directly make the payment to C, so that two debts are settled in one single transaction only. So this is what B is making an order to A, that you make the payment accordingly. So this will be bills of exchange. This is why we need two different transactions. One is the debtor is making the instrument, he is making a promise. Another one is the creditor is making that particular transaction and he is making an order, right? He is ordering that you pay this much amount of rupees. So this is just like an example of how bills of exchange may look like, but it's not like a standard format that we have. It can be in any different varieties. What matters is that it should have the things very clear. So this is bills of exchange. Amount is 2 lakhs rupees. They will mention that, okay, fine, Bangalore, 28th of November 2020. And they will say that 60 days after this date, pay this, this particular person this much amount of rupees for value received. So value received as in I have received some kind of consideration. Maybe I have received laptops from the person, so I'm making the payment. I have received some office tables or other furniture, so I'm making the payment. Accordingly, it can be. And drawer will make the sign. For bills of exchange, one thing that is very important is it must be accepted by the drawee. Why is it important that he accepts it? In case of promissory note, if I am buying the laptops, I am only the one who is making the promise also, right? I will say that I promise to pay this much amount of rupees to so and so person on this date, and I will put my signature. That is what? That is a promise that I myself am making, right? I don't need to accept it in any way. I am only the one who is making the promise. So there is no question of accepting it or not. But in case of bills of exchange, what happens? I am supposed to make the payment, but someone else is making the order. So obviously this order will be valid only when I accept it, right? So for bills of exchange, it should be accepted by the person also. So I will write accepted. I will put my signature, address and everything. Only in that case it will be valid. Otherwise, what may happen is that if A is buying 10 laptops, 5 laptops, whatever it is, B can issue n number of bills of exchange, right? He can just write that, okay, I order you to pay this much amount of rupees to me. That will not be valid, right? We can just write anything that he wants. That will not be valid unless and until this other person gives his acceptance to it. So for bills of exchange, it always has to be accepted by the debtor also. In that case only, we will see that it's valid. For obvious reasons that we can write anything that we want, right? If this transaction was worth 5 lakhs rupees, I can even write he will pay me 20 lakhs rupees. But that will not be valid unless and until it is accepted by the debtor. So it always has to be accepted by the other person as well. So this is like an essential thing for bills of exchange as well. So for bills of exchange, we have these features that it should be in writing and not an oral order. This order must be unconditional. This amount must be certain, definite, and well mentioned. It must be accepted by the drawee. So this also is a feature of bills of exchange. Unless and until it is accepted, it is not valid. Drawer and payee may be same person or it may be different person also. So B can take the amount himself, or he can say that you make the payment to some other person to whom I am anyway supposed to make the payment. So now what are the differences between promissory note and bills of exchange then after reading these definitions? What are the differences between promissory note and bills of exchange? Why do we need like two different types of instruments? Anyone? Difference between promissory note and bills of exchange?
So ma'am, promissory note is a promise and bill of exchange is an order. And then promissory note is made by the debtor promising to pay a certain amount to the creditor. But in case of bill of exchange, the order comes from the side of creditor towards the debtor, ordering him to pay a certain sum of money.
Yeah. And? So
Ma'am?
obviously, yeah.
Ma'am, in bills of exchange, the pay may be the drawer or some other person, ma'am.
Yeah.
But in promissory note, there's nothing like as such, ma'am.
Yeah. Right. And also we have like two different provisions defining two different terms, right? For promissory note, we have section 4. For bills of exchange, we have section 5. For promissory note, we have two different parties. One will make it, another one will get the payment. But in case of bills of exchange, we have three different parties. One will give the order, another will make the payment. It may be paid to the creditor or it may be paid to someone else also based on his order. It contains promise to pay. It contains an order to pay. It is issued by debtor. It is issued by creditor. No acceptance is needed as it is made by the debtor itself. So if I am only making a promise, I don't need to accept my own promise. But in case someone else is giving an order, I need to accept it or I need to like give my acceptance to it. So for promissory note, no concept of acceptance. For bills of exchange, I need to accept it. Then only it will be valid. Drawee and payee cannot be the same person, but here it can be same person. So I cannot make a promise that I will pay 5 lakhs rupees to my own self, right? It cannot be the same person. One will make the promise and other one will get the payment. So accordingly, this is
Ma'am,
what
can you say that features of bills of exchange, ma'am?
features of bills of exchange. Yeah. So for bills of exchange, what we have is, firstly, if you look at the definition, what bills of exchange basically is, it is section 5 that defines bills of exchange. It is an instrument in writing. It is unconditional order. There is no conditions attached to it. It is signed by the maker that there is a direction to the other person that you make this amount of payment and it has to be accepted by the other person as well. So based on the definition, what are the features? It has to be written only, just like any other instrument. It cannot be an oral order. This order should be unconditional. There cannot be any conditions like only if you found these laptops helpful, you pay me 5 lakhs rupees. Only if you found this, made use of these laptops, you pay me 5 lakhs rupees. No conditions are there. You pay me 5 lakhs rupees. That's all. The amount must be certain, definite, and well mentioned. I cannot say that you pay me 5% of your profit, annual profit, you pay me 10% of your profit, anything like that. It has to be a certain fixed amount that I will clearly mention. You pay me 5 lakhs, you pay me 10 lakhs, whatever it is. It must be accepted by the drawee. Because it is an order passed by someone else, this order has to be accepted, just like contracts, right? If someone is making an offer, you need to accept that offer. Then only it will be valid and you will be bound under it. Same thing applies here also. Unless and until you are accepting it, you are not bound under someone else's order. So it has to be accepted always. And drawer and payee may be the same person, or it may be different persons also. I can say that you pay me 5 lakhs rupees, or I can say that I'm also supposed to pay 5 lakhs rupees to this other person. So rather than making the payment to me, you make the payment to this other person, so that in one transaction only these two debts are cleared. So accordingly, it can be done. So these are the differences between bills of exchange and promissory note, and why we need two different instruments for like one single transaction only. Why do we need like two different options of taking this promise or making an order? So any doubts on this particular part? Now from this part, here are some questions from previous year papers that you can try to answer. So these were actually asked in some or the other year judiciary paper. So this will give you an idea on what you can study from this part as well. So when this act was enacted? Anyone?
Ma'am, the answers are mentioned down actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Now?
Now it's not, ma'am.
Okay.
Answer is B, ma'am.
It is 9th of December 1881 when this act was enacted. Then when this act came into force?
1st of April.
1st of April
C, ma'am, 1882.
1882. So see, for 1st of April, there are two options again. So try to see the year also if year is different. The Negotiable Instruments Act extends to
Whole of India, C.
able to see whole of India.
A, ma'am.
It is applicable to whole of India, including Jammu.
All the above. D, all the above. All the above, ma'am. D.
Yeah, it is all of the above. It is freely transferable. It is to recover some amount which is due. It is written and signed.
Ma'am, can you share this document in the group, ma'am, after the class?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
The definition, ma'am.
The
Section.
definition of promissory note is
Section
given. Section 4. Money payable on negotiable.
Must be certain, ma'am. A.
So this was about the first two types of instruments that we have. What is important from this part is, first of all, year, when it came into force, when it was enacted. Very important are these 4 sections that you can try to remember. And then you can just go through these, right? Like the features and all you can go through so that you can answer these questions that it must be signed or it must be written and all of that, right? So the features you can just go through one time. Then its applicability, this is also important, okay, by the way, that it may be applicable to customary instruments when it is applicable, when parties agree, or when customary laws relating to these instruments are silent. Only in this case it is important. So try to remember this also. It's also very important that it can be applied to customary instruments like hundis, etc., only when the local laws or customary practices or usages are silent about how to settle the dispute, or if parties agree that we will be governed by this NI Act, then it can be applied. For promissory note and all, you can just go through the definition. You will understand what are the features. That should be enough.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have a doubt, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like why do we have 3 kinds of, I mean, negotiable instrument, ma'am, like promissory note, bills of exchange, and checks? Can that be only one, no, ma'am, like one negotiable instrument?
Yeah, see, like it depends on what parties prefer. Me, it basically is like same thing, only they are making the promise, right? But it depends on what kind of transaction they would prefer. Maybe in one case, one person is making a promise that I will pay to you only. But in case of bills of exchange, what is the benefit that we are getting? It can be done to someone else also. So in one single transaction, I'm clearing 2 different debts. Definitely it would facilitate transactions, business trades that people are doing. And also it is like a different way of making it, that okay, fine, on this particular date I order you to pay this much amount of money to whoever is taking it. I am issuing it to someone else, he goes, presents it before the person, he will have to pay. So rather than paying me, then again I paying to the other person, it is facilitating this particular thing, right? So we have 2 different things. That promissory note also we have, bills of exchange also we have, 2 different things having its own benefits, its own things, etc. And we have check also, which is like more modern and more common nowadays. Now if you see all the businesses, companies and all, they would transact in terms of check only. They would not issue bills of exchange, or they would not issue promissory note. So check is like more common, more prevalent nowadays. Most of the cases that you would see for NI Act are also for check bounce and relating to checks only. So we have like 3 different things. For checks again, we have different other provisions also, different other things also. It's more convenient for like businesses, transactions, etc. So like we have 3 different things, like because they are not like exactly same again, right? They are little different from each other. Now take for example this, right? If there is a promissory note, okay, now take for example like you are a company, I am also a company, we both want to enter into some sort of a contract. I will provide you some services, and every single month, based on the services that you have taken, you need to make payments to me. Now, every single time we will be writing a promissory note, you will make a promise, I will pay this much amount of money to you, you will put your signature and all, you would get this notary and all of that. That is what unnecessary headache, right? Rather than doing all of that, you can just simply write a check, give it to me, everything is done. If you want to give checks previously only, take for example for 2021, we will enter into a contract, I will provide you some sort of services, you will pay me for that. But beforehand only you can issue some checks that on this particular month, for this particular month, this is the check, for this particular month, this is the check. Previously also you can do. This is like less, like unnecessary headache is not there for checks, like putting your signature and all of that, whether it's genuine, whether it's not genuine, and all of that. Check for check, it is not there. You are just issuing it, your signature is there, you have mentioned the amount, my name is there, this, that, everything is very much clear. So it is like more convenient for businesses and all. That is why it's getting more popular also. So this is why basically we have different types of instruments under it. Okay, so fine, then I will share this document for this part, whatever we discussed today. You can go through it. Any part is not clear or anything, next class you can tell me, we will repeat that particular part. And
Ma'am, even contract and specific relief, right?
yeah, sure, that also I will share. So for contracts I will share, I guess I have shared everything, but if you feel anything is not there with you, you can just download that part. And for specific relief I have not shared, so I'll share that as well.
Yes,
So whatever you need, you can download that. Okay, so fine, then next class we will continue with checks and the different provisions relating to it, and also we have some questions and all that also we will see. Okay, fine then.
Good
So
night.
yeah, fine, I'm ending this class here. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.